The Galactic Council's high spire shimmered above the clouds of Ankara Prime, its crystal towers refracting the light of 3 suns. It was a monument to diplomacy, to unity, to the supposed enlightenment of the Empire's dominion. It was also, apparently, the perfect place to stage a massacre. Ambassador Helen Miles adjusted her collar in the reflective surface of a stasis field wall, her expression calm, but her fingers twitching. Earth's first full diplomatic mission to the Galactic Empire had been rocky. Their hosts had made it clear that humanity's seat at the table was more of a stool in the corner. Still, Helen had come armed, not with weapons, but with sharp words and sharper instincts. She stood in the tribunal chamber now, a ring of alien judges watching her like a zoo exhibit. The air hummed with artificial gravity and suppressed contempt. Most of the species present had long ago phased out emotions. They viewed humans the way one might regard a species that still ate with their hands. Chancellor Zethral's voice slithered from his many throats. Ambassador Miles, we find the Terran Republic guilty of cultural contamination, incitement, and unauthorized weaponization of humor. Helen's eyebrow arched. Weaponized humor? You mean the diplomacy is just passive-aggressive war? T-shirts my interns wear? You mock our traditions, he hissed, gesturing with a limb that bent in 3 dimensions. And we do not tolerate mockery. She could feel it. The shift. This wasn't protocol, this wasn't theater. It was execution. Helen lifted her chin. If you're going to kill me, Chancellor, at least admit it's because you're afraid. There was a pause, then an electric hum. From the floor, metal restraints surged upward, locking her in place. The crowd of dignitaries watched in clinical silence. Insolent, predictable. Zithral nodded, and a plasma coil began to spin to life above the tribunal floor. Somewhere far away, on a dry patch of Wyoming, Aria Miles was wrenching a plasma bolt out of a rusted hoverbike when her wristband flickered. A secure message, Black Seal, the kind only used for war or death. She dropped the bolt. The device chimed again. Aria, it's Davis. Don't watch the feed. Helen's gone, executed. Tribunal claimed she breached protocol. They aired it, galaxy-wide. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. She didn't scream, didn't shake, just stared, out across the dust-blown plains. Roger that, she muttered. She walked inside her trailer, quiet as a breeze, opened a rusted trunk beneath her cot, and pulled out a matte black exosuit. A patch was still stitched into the shoulder. 73rd. Human recon retired mostly. The galaxy had rules. Aria had none. 4 weeks later, in a bar on Varkin Station, 2 Drakari officers sat nursing glow shots and watching a playback of Helen's execution on loop. I still say humans taste like emotional instability, one of them muttered. Other snorted. You're just mad she got in the last word. The screen glitched, static, then darkness. A shape moved behind the officers, silent. One turned, annoyed. Oi, what's with the... His sentence ended in a soft crunch. The second officer blinked, reaching for his communicator before a tranq dart hit him between his massive eyes. He slumped forward, face first into his drink. Aria stepped into the light, dropping the bar's faulty hollow projector. Just once I want one of you to order a salad instead of blood gin. Would make cleanup a lot easier. She flicked a data chip from her pocket and slotted it into a console behind the bar. It hummed, then blinked green. 2 down, she murmured. 17 to go. Aboard the Empire's capital ship Inditter, Chancellor Zithral reviewed the latest security brief, with what approximated concern for his species. The brief was thin, and that made it dangerous. 3 officials involved in the Earth Tribunal had disappeared in 2 cycles. 2 were dead. The other had left a panicked message consisting entirely of, "She's real," and a scream. He rubbed the ridge above his primary ocular lobe. "It's 1 human," he hissed to his aide. "1." The aide glanced nervously at the monitor. "Yes, Excellency, but she's untraditional. Tactical unpredictability. Creative improvisation. Improvised meat-based weaponry, Zithral sneered. They say this is vengeance, humans and their primitive attachment rituals. He leaned closer to the screen. It showed a grainy freeze frame of Arya standing over a smoldering wreck, half lit in plasma fire, a stolen Imperial, rifle slung over one shoulder. But what they don't understand, he murmured, is that the Empire will not be threatened by grief. Back on Earth, Davis paced in front of a secure comlink, speaking to an empty feed. Arya, I know you can hear me. We need you back. The Senate is furious. They think you're escalating things. Half the galaxy is watching reruns of what you're doing like it's a damn sitcom. You've started a cult. There's merch, Arya, merch. She didn't respond. She was already on the next world, scoping the next target, blending into crowds of aliens that barely understood what denim was. They whispered now, across starports and neutral zones. A human with fire in her blood and death, in her smile. The Huntress. The ghost of Earth. A woman without fear or mercy. A woman with a mission. And above them all, the stars shimmered in cold indifference. Except for one, on the edge of Terran-controlled space, pulsing with an encoded signal only Arya could recognize. The final message from her mother, it said one word, dig. She smiled for the first time in weeks, a smile that promised bad things to bad people. The Empire had lit a fire they couldn't put out, and Arya Miles was just getting warmed up. The sea, moons of Carthus IV were always beautiful just before a kill. Arya crouched low on the roof of a luxury dome, her exosuit shimmering with adaptive camouflage. Below her, Judge Velxar reclined in a pot of nutrient jelly, his tendrils wrapped lazily around 2 flute glasses of fermented glax. He looked smug, detached, comfortable. She hated that. He had presided over her mother's trial, feigning impartiality, while logging bets on the outcome with fellow council members. He once referred to Helen Miles as a charming little ape in a suit. Arya had replayed that recording 3 times, just to get the tone exactly right. She pulled a micro drill from her pouch, cut through the dome's sealant with practiced precision, and dropped inside with the silence of a falling feather. Velxar's security protocols were laughable, standard issue Imperial arrogance. He hadn't even changed his access code since the trial. She slid through the mists of the spa chamber, the steam hissing softly against her suit. The smell of synth lavender and glax bile filled her nostrils. Computer, she said in flawless core speech. Begin exfoliation sequence. There was a soft chime. Dozens of micro-cleaning drones descended from the ceiling. Velxar stirred. I didn't request, he began, but it was too late. She emerged from the mist behind him. His secondary eyes widened in terror as he saw her reflection in the nutrient gel, black armor, matte helmet, silent and solid. You, he whispered. She pressed a thumb to his throat and leaned close. Try not to scream. The drones are set to target sharp vocal frequencies. He gasped and the drones swarmed. Arya stepped back and let them work. 3 minutes later, she was walking calmly through the corridors of the spa, blending in with a crowd of mildly intoxicated executives. Velxar's remains would be discovered. In an hour, stripped of all epidermal tissue. The Empire's investigation would likely list it as accidental exfoliation complication. Bureaucracy made for such tidy lies. On her shuttle, she deactivated her helmet and took a breath. A long one. Her jaw ached. Not from exertion, but from holding back. 2 down, she said again, quieter this time. 17 to go. In a subterranean war room buried beneath the shining halls of the Galactic Spire, Chancellor Zithral's aides whispered urgently. She's targeting the signatories, Chancellor. Precision strikes. Minimal collateral. Total humiliation. Zithral's spines flexed outward in irritation. We are not humiliated, we are learning. No, Excellency, the aide said deadpan. We are trending. The Chancellor's screen flickered, displaying a crude, animated caricature. A human woman in black armor kicking an alien's posterior across 10 planets to a synth rock soundtrack. The title read, The Huntress, Galactic Edition. Below it, scrolled a fan comment feed. Humans are terrifying. I want her autograph, and maybe to be her sidekick. Is exfoliation a human weapon? Zithral stared in horror. What is fan fiction? The aide winced. A cultural virus, Excellency. It spreads through emotional identification and unauthorized creativity. And it's about her? Zithral demanded. Yes. She's acquired mythological status among the lower-tier species. They're calling her a symbol of vengeance, of justice. The Chancellor leaned back, oozing frustration. Deploy the logic enforcers. If diplomacy failed, perhaps predictability will win. On a mining world 3 systems away, Arya stepped into a weapons shack hidden behind a rusted gravloader. A small bell jingled overhead. Inside, the air was thick with old oil, burnt carbon, and victory. Uncle Boom looked up from a disassembled plasma rifle. The old Marine grinned beneath his silver beard. Well, I'll be. If it ain't the end of the Empire, she smirked. Still hoarding war crimes in the back room? I prefer the term nostalgic ordnance, he said, wiping his hands on a stained flag from Earth's last interplanetary skirmish. She stepped forward, pulling a small chip from her belt. Need a disruptor coil, 3-stage, silent entry, no plasma flare. He raised an eyebrow. Planning a quiet dinner party? Something like that. Boom studied her for a moment, then tossed her a microgun shaped like a chewing gum dispenser. Try that. Shoots pure kinetic foam. Silently chokes most species before they know they're dying. Less messy. Arya turned it over in her hand. You ever stop inventing new ways to kill things? Only when my arthritis flares up. So about once every 2 weeks. They shared a brief smile. The kind only people with long, violent pasts can trade without speaking of it. You've made some noise, he said finally, serious now. The kind that echoes. Whole damn galaxies watching. She nodded. Let them watch. Zithrals, got enforcers. Real ones. You'll need help soon. Arya didn't respond, just pocketed the foam gun and turned toward the door. He called after her. What if you win? What if the Empire falls? Then what? She paused in the doorway. Then, I find out what my mother was trying to warn us about. Boom frowned. She knew something? She sent a message before they silenced her. 1 word. Let me guess, he said. Revenge? Dig. She was gone before he could ask more. Above the jungle world of Frondelise, an imperial judge, named Colthrex emerged from his palace fortress to take his ceremonial bath in volcanic salts. A ritual he claimed enhanced psychic receptivity. He was flanked by 2 guards and a floating personal chef. Mid-step, his guards froze, not in fear, but in complete neurostasis. A dart embedded in each of their necks pulsed faintly. Colthrex. Spun too late. Arya dropped from a tree above him, striking with surgical precision. His personal chef shrieked and ejected into the air. She dragged the squirming judge into the steaming bath and pushed his face under the bubbling salts. Ever. Wonder how much faster volcanic brine corrodes imperial smugness, she asked. His screams gurgled. A minute later, silence. She retrieved a datapad from his satchel. Personal messages, financial records, tribunal meeting logs. One message stood out. A flagged private channel labeled Eclipse Protocol, redacted overrule Miles. Her pulse spiked. She'd suspected this wasn't just about her mother, but now she had proof. On board her ship, she cracked the encryption. It led to a dead channel routed through 6 obsolete satellites. But one image remained, a memory imprint. Her mother's voice. Arya, if you're seeing this, it means diplomacy failed. They came for us not because we were weak, but because we saw something we weren't supposed to. The Eclipse Protocol was real. It's not just policy, it's extermination by law. Arya's jaw tightened. Helen's voice continued. They'll come for you too, but remember, darling, they underestimate humans. Always have. Make them remember why that's a mistake. The feed ended. Outside, a thunderstorm brewed over Frondelis, casting long shadows across the canopy. Inside, Arya loaded a fresh round into her weapon. Her voice was a whisper, meant for no one but the void. "I'm not just remembering, Mom. I'm making history." And the Empire had no idea what kind of history she was about to write. Aboard the Imperial dreadnought, virtue of compliance, everything reeked of confidence, metallic, sterile, and coldly rehearsed. It was the heart of galactic authority, the kind of place where rules were not discussed but assumed to be obeyed. The command deck sat like a cerebral cortex above the battleship's steel spine, pulsing with information, calculation, and condescension. In the middle of it all stood Lord High Executor Varn Kor, a sentient gas housed in a pressurized mobility dome shaped like a snow globe. He drifted idly as his analysts spoke. "She's destroyed 5 signal towers, 4 minor judges, and now 3 tribunal-linked financiers," said a blinking insectoid named Saren, reading from a pulsating datasheet. "Minimal loss to infrastructure, massive blow to morale." "Not morale," hissed Kor, swirling in his dome. "Narrative. That's what she's attacking. The illusion of control." He rotated to face his field commander, a rigid biomech, unit named K2HR. "You've reviewed the footage?" "Yes, Executor. She's not just executing targets. She's building legend. Every kill is theater. She leaves messages, symbols, cultural cues, like K2HR flicked its ocular lenses. On the last body, she left a human coin. Dated. Obsolete. It bore the image of a leader from her species' past. The coin's placement and burn patterns implied ritual, reverence, possibly sarcasm. "Do you know what we're dealing with, K2? The mech paused. "A decorated ex-operative, skilled in terrain adaptation, cultural infiltration, and human improvisational warfare." Kor floated closer. "We're dealing with a myth, a human weapon shaped by grief and trained in chaos. And she's laughing while she burns our order to the ground." He spun toward the war table. "Prepare the bait." On a distant moon orbiting a forgotten gas giant, Arya sat cross-legged in an old Terran dropship, parked inside a cave that smelled like copper and ozone. A projection hovered. Before her, records decrypted from Cole Threx's datapad. Eclipse Protocol, a systematic Imperial strategy for destabilizing dissenting planets. Disguise, manipulation, provocation, followed by diplomatic scandal and removal. They'd perfected it, and now Earth had been its proving ground. She zoomed in on a transmission. From Helen, her mother's face flickering in and out beneath data corruption. "If they trigger Eclipse," Helen said, voice strained, "they'll erase us, but it'll look like we tripped. A fall disguised as a jump. You have to expose them, Arya. Make it messy, make them answer." Arya tapped her belt. Her onboard AI chirped. "Target analysis?" "Cross-referencing with latest tribunal data," the voice replied. "Imperial Administrator Harnex is en route to Helios Plaza. Private fleet escort. Media scheduled for a staged peace announcement. Message is unity. Subtext is fear." Arya narrowed her eyes. "Perfect." 27 hours later, Helios Plaza gleamed under twin suns. The architecture was Imperial minimalist. Tall spires, clean edges, zero personality. Crowds had gathered, mostly coerced civilians and diplomatic pawns in ceremonial garb. Floating. Screens projected Harnex's face smirking in pre-recorded righteousness. "I speak today not as a superior," he declared, "but as a shepherd guiding lesser minds toward unity." Arya winced in the shadow of a maintenance scaffold. That voice alone should be a war crime. She triggered the drone. Above the plaza, a small black orb began to project an overlay, archival footage of the Eclipse Protocol. Holograms bloomed. In the air, showing doctored reports, false flag operations, and testimonies from former enforcers. The crowd murmured. Some gasped. Harnex paused mid-sentence. "Shut that down." He snapped to his guards, but Arya was already moving. A small pop from her foam gun took out the security node on the platform. Then came the flashbang, tuned not for blindness, but for truth. A burst of data that hijacked every screen on the plaza. The Empire's secrets blared across them like a late-night infomercial. She rose from the crowd, no longer in stealth armor but full exo-combat gear, the Terran insignia boldly stitched into her chest plate. The effect was immediate. Civilians backed away. Security forces hesitated. Every eye locked on her. Arya raised her voice. "My name is Arya Miles. My mother was Helen Miles. She came to this empire in peace. You murdered her, you called it law." She stepped onto the dais beside Harnex, who sputtered and backed away. "You thought humans would mourn quietly. You thought fear would silence us, but you forgot the first rule of dealing with humans." She grabbed the mic from his podium, looked dead into the nearest drone camera and smiled. "We don't shut up, we show up." Then she kicked Harnex off the platform. He screamed all the way down, until his fall was broken by a decorative fountain shaped like a squid deity. The crowd erupted. Some cheered, others fled, most simply stared. She vanished again before the Imperial security net could even locate her heat signature. Later, deep inside the virtue of compliance, Zithral hovered over the war table as reports poured in. Planetary uprisings, sabotaged signals, open rebellions in border systems. "She's triggered something," he said. "Not just outrage, belief." Saren looked nervous. "Our own people are quoting her. The propaganda teams can't contain it, and worse, some of our governors are defecting, quietly. The illusion of imperial invincibility is unraveling." Kor floated nearby, silent, until he spoke. "She wants us to break," he said softly. "Wants us to lash out." Zithral laughed, a bitter, many-throated noise. "And we will." That night, Arya patched in to a secure comm on a forgotten satellite once used to broadcast 1990s Earth sitcoms into deep space, her favorite kind of irony. Davis answered, haggard and half-shaved, eyes tired. "Do you know what you've started?" he asked. She nodded. "Something better than silence. They've declared you a terrorist. Half the galaxy's calling for your capture. The other half wants to elect you Queen of Revenge. I'll settle for Daughter of Helen." He hesitated. "Are you okay?" She looked away, scanning the stars from the broken satellite. "No, but I'm close." Davis leaned forward. "There's one more name on the Eclipse protocol." "I know," she said. "Zithral." And in the distance the great empire cracked, not with an explosion but with the growing sound of laughter, rebellion, and the unmistakable click of Terran boots walking toward justice. The virtue of compliance drifted in the silent void above the burning world of Adaros 9, its hull blackened in places where uprisings had struck back with stolen Terran tech. From orbit, the planet below looked like a smoldering ember. Zithral watched it with something close to disgust, but not quite. He had long since stopped feeling disgust. What replaced it was calculation, a colder instinct. "We underestimated the human again," Saren whispered, his chitin cracking softly as he leaned forward. "No," Zithral said. "We recognized her too late." The Admiral's domed eyes twitched. "Her broadcast reached the inner ring. Even the Crystar Accord has frozen trade. The old alliances are crumbling." Zithral turned away from the viewport. "So we take the gloves off. What's left of diplomacy ends today." "Executor Corps is assembling the Enforcer Corps," Saren said. "Full psychic warfare units, biological nullifiers, orbital law spheres. She won't escape this time." Zithral gave, the faintest curl of his lip a rare and practiced gesture. "She's been baiting us into war, let's give it to her." Arya floated silently in a stolen reconnaissance pod just outside the Dreadnought sensor net, wrapped in the flickering shadows of a failed cloaking patch and stubborn Terran ingenuity. She'd been listening to them for hours, slicing into their feeds, studying the fleet's behavioral patterns. Zithral was going to make this personal. Good. In the corner of her screen, a private message blinked open. Davis again. "You're poking the Kraken, Arya." She sipped cold black coffee, her only vice left from a childhood full of late-night debates with her mother and old Star Trek reruns. Kraken poked first, she replied. They're mobilizing psychic warheads, the kind that can shut down entire minds. You sure you're up for that? Arya ran a hand down her exosuit. Her fingers grazed over her mother's old diplomatic badge, now worn down to a dull sheen. I'm not doing this for me anymore. Davis sighed. You never were. Just, if you don't make it. She cut the channel. She hated goodbyes. Instead, she keyed into the Dreadnought's garbage cycle. Minutes later, a single waste capsule ejected from the bottom of the Virtue of Compliance, venting old nutrient sludge and decomposed bureaucracy into space. Hidden inside, Arya exhaled slowly. The pod tumbled toward the rear docking bay where access was weakest, because no one apparently feared an attack from the trash. It was very human, she thought, to weaponize garbage. She emerged inside the lower deck, silent as a myth. Her HUD lit up with internal schematics thanks to a hacked maintenance drone she'd bribed earlier with uploaded episodes of MacGyver. Target. Core Nexus, she murmured. The lights flickered around her. An alarm sounded softly, but it was vague. Systemic, not personal. Perfect. She stalked through the corridors like a wraith, her armor now etched with messages in languages Zithral's empire had long since conquered and forgotten. Not threats, memories, names of the fallen, human and alien alike. Because revenge, she'd learned, wasn't about making someone pay. It was about making sure they remembered. She breached the Nexus chamber at 0312 ship time. A single access panel blocked her from the control relay. The room hummed with stored energy and propaganda. Holograms of the Empire's greatest triumphs lined the walls, victories over primitive species, speeches declaring the death of chaos, edited footage of Helen Miles bowing before judgment. Arya paused before the last one. Her mother looked tired. Yes, but not broken. The footage lied. You always said diplomacy was war with better grammar, Arya muttered. Let's add a footnote. She loaded the virus. It was old Earth code, something Davis had dug up from a pre-digital relic buried in the Mojave. A self-replicating satire bot that replaced official messaging with parodied versions. Every broadcast now ran through its logic. Speeches gained laugh tracks. Imperial threats were filtered through Looney Tunes logic. Zithral's stern proclamations now came with bubble noises and tiny rubber chicken effects. The absurdity would spread like wildfire. She sealed the hack, turned, and found Executor Core waiting for her. His dome shimmered with rage. Inside, his gaseous form swirled with volatile color. You mock us. You erode the bones of civilization with your primate humor. Bones don't crack if they weren't brittle, she replied. He surged forward, a telekinetic shockwave blasting the room. Arya rolled aside, firing the foam weapon, only to watch it vaporize in a psychic barrier. Core didn't fight physically. He fought with pressure, ideas, psychic projections that made the walls crawl and the floor hum in nausea-inducing rhythms. But Arya had been trained differently. She pulled a cassette tape from her side pouch, slid it into her wrist player. Click, suddenly the room filled with music, grainy, rebellious, distinctly human. We're not going to take it. Twisted Sister, 1984. The most effective anti-authoritarian soundtrack she knew. Core recoiled. What is that noise? She smiled. Culture shock, she charged, ducking under his telepathic field, grabbing a fragmine from her belt and slamming it onto the console beside him. He tried to phase away, but too late. The explosion knocked her. Backward. Core's containment dome cracked, hissing pressure. Inside, his gaseous body thrashed wildly, flailing into a misty scream. She rose, coughing, half her HUD gone, hair singed and teeth aching. But Core was down. And the virtue of compliance? Hijacked, she took the command seat. This is Arya Miles, she said, projecting through every channel the Empire had ever used to control its subjects. I stand on the bridge of their greatest warship. I didn't take it with fleets, I didn't need armies, I used the one thing they can't program into submission. Truth. She paused. And an unhealthy appreciation for Earth's worst music. decade. She inputted coordinates and set the dreadnought on autopilot, straight toward the Central Tribunal Council on Rixon Prime. Then she ejected. The Virtue cruised forward like a silent judgment. When it struck, it did not explode. Instead, its screens lit up with every secret the Tribunal ever buried. Every lie, every manipulation, every document her mother died trying to leak, broadcast, planet to planet, system to system. Truth, Arya thought, was louder than vengeance. She landed hard on a jungle moon 2 jumps away. Her escape pod hissed, panels buckling, legs wobbling as she stumbled out into green mist. Her comm buzzed. "Arya," Davis said. "It worked. They're scattering. The Tribunal disbanded. They're calling it the Protocol Collapse. You made history." She leaned against a tree. "Tell them not to write statues." "No statues, just stories. Make them funny." He laughed. "Already done." She smiled, eyes closing, as the wind brushed her face. "Tell them she died with her boots on. You're not dead. Not yet." And somewhere beyond the stars, in places the Empire once ruled without question, people whispered her name. Not in fear, but in reverence, in joy, because revenge had ended, and the myth had just begun.